Go.
Thank you. All right. It is now 11 a.m. I call this meeting back to order. Continuation from this morning. The next item on the agenda docket is number 25-3103, a rulemaking hearing for proposed changes to the Water Quality Division. So we are going on the record for docket number 25-3103, Water Quality Rules, Chapter 4. My name is JD Radakovich, and I will be acting as a hearing officer in this matter. Today is November 18th, 2025. The time is 11 a.m. Present today are Council Members Steve Lenz, Marjorie Bedessem, Ryan Green, William Stafford, and also present are council staff Kelly Duran, Joe Jordan, and EQC legal counsel Ryan Shellhouse. This is a proposed rulemaking package revising water quality rules, Chapter 4, regulations for releases of oil and hazardous substances, into the waters of the state of Wyoming. I understand that the department would like to make a presentation. Please state your names for the record and proceed when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all the members of the council. My name is Jennifer Zigmant. I'm the administrator of the Water Quality Division of the Wyoming DEQ. We are pleased to be here today to present proposed revisions to Wyoming Water Quality Rules, Chapter 4 to you. With me today, I have Gina Thompson, our policy and planning analyst, and online in our Casper office, Kate Miller, who is our current emergency and spills response coordinator. Chapter 4 will be new to all members of the council. It was last updated in 1987. So it's been quite some time since we've proposed revisions to this rule. It has been generally working very effectively. So our primary reason in revising it today is largely cleanup for readability and clarity, and to update the rule to make sure that it's reflecting current processes. It's not a long rule. It's only 4 pages, but it is one of our most important rules. DEQ Spills and Emergency Response Program, again, led by Kate, is housed within water quality because Chapter 4 is specific to spills that enter or threaten to enter waters of the state. But Kate also assists all DEQ divisions as we become aware of spills or other incidents that may affect air, land, and water resources. In 2024, we responded to over 300 spills. In addition, Kate responds to complaints submitted to the agency, and in 2024, we received over 100 complaints. Our role in spills is to make sure that we're working with the responsible party and state, local, and federal partners to ensure that the spill is cleaned up in accordance with our standards, such that we're meeting our statutory and regulatory responsibilities to protect human health and the environment. Our authority for Chapter 4 comes from the Wyoming Environmental Quality Act, specifically 35-11-301, no pollution without a permit, and 302, the authority to recommend standards, rules, regulations, and permits. I'll note that there is no delegation of federal regulations to Wyoming with this rule. It is strictly authorized under the Environmental Quality Act. But our partnerships with the federal agencies are important in spills response, and we coordinate regularly with EPA. They have authority to respond to oil spills that affect the water of the United States under the Oil Pollution Act. And they're also, important partners if we have an incident that exceeds our capacity to respond. It's also important to know that Chapter 4 works in coordination with our other statutes and regulatory authorities under DEQ. That provide additional authority to require cleanup and restoration to our standards, whether those are soil standards, water quality standards, or air quality standards. And our authority for enforcement actions under the Environmental Quality Act applies to spills response as well. So Kate and her job duties works with the responsible party to report and clean up activities, but then she also works with other programs within the DEQ, such as our point source discharge permitting program, the groundwater section and voluntary remediation programs to make sure that cleanups happen in accordance with Chapter 4, but also other environmental standards that apply through other environmental programs. We are reliant in this spills program on good partnerships, and Kate, like her predecessor, has developed good relationships with industry groups as well as our local, state, and federal partners to make sure that we have effective spills response within Wyoming. We spend a lot of time educating, and part of the challenge is making sure that people know what they're required to do in the event of a spill and when they need to notify us about the spill. So in terms of changes to Chapter 4, as you've seen us do with previous rules, we've made global edits to update our rules in accordance with direction from the Attorney General's office to streamline and increase readability of our rules. So we've made grammatical corrections, we've reorganized some sections of the rule, we've made quite a few formatting changes, we've made revisions to reduce redundancy and to remove repetition of statutes, changes to improve readability, and changes to change from the passive voice to the active voice. So some of the typical global edits that you've seen us make with other recent rulemaking packages. Other updates that we made to Chapter 4 include removing definitions not used in the rule, updating passages to reflect current procedures, incorporating incorporation by reference where appropriate to do so, and making revisions to clarify existing requirements. For example, we made clarifying edits to make it clearer and cleaner about what spills do and do not need to be reported to DEQ in accordance with the rule. The most notable revision that we've made at this time with Chapter 4 is adding language requiring cleanup of spills in accordance with department guidance. We've added this language because we routinely use things like the Solid and Hazardous Waste Division Voluntary Remediation Program fact sheets for soil cleanup as the level that people need to clean up spills to in order to make sure that the soil is not going to be leaching materials into the groundwater. Previously, we didn't have that language, so we just wanted to include a broad reference to department guidance to make sure that we have that ability to require cleanup to those levels, such as are in those SWID fact sheets. Another notable revision is changing the reporting deadline from 7 to 15 days to accommodate lab sample times and to be consistent with reporting timeframes of other state and federal agencies. We've also clarified the definition of hazardous substances, and we've included a reference to Table 302.4 of Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations, 302.4, to make it clearer what federally designated hazardous substances we are referring to in the rule. In terms of process, we started scoping for this rule in December 2024. We did not receive any comments during the scoping period. In the public notice prior to the Water and Waste Advisory Board meeting, we received one comment letter, a joint comment letter from the Wyoming Outdoor Council, the Powder River Basin Resource Council, the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, and Protect Our Waters Jackson Hole. Those comments did provide some good feedback, and we made further revisions to the rule in response to some of those comments. We met with the Water and Waste Advisory Board on June 17th. We made a few additional revisions following that meeting, a couple additional grammatical corrections, a further clarification to the definition of hazardous substances, and in Section 4D, we reworded the passage there just to make it clear that the Water Quality Division Administrator has the ability to require somebody to remove a spilled substance, but can't do so if it would put, say, a first responder into a dangerous or hazardous situation. So just some clarification to the language to make that intent cleaner. And then finally, in the public notice prior to this EQC hearing, we did not receive any additional comments. So, Mr. Chairman, at this time, that concludes my opening remarks. Kate and I are here to answer any questions, or we'd be happy to do a more detailed walkthrough of the rule if you would like us to.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. Thank you for your presentation. We'll now open it up to questions by the council. Does any council member have any questions for the department, the proposed changes?
Me again.
The hearing officer recognizes council member Marjorie Bedeson.
Administrator Zygmunt, could you explain that scoping process again?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. So we started scoping, which is just typically our first step of letting the public and interested parties know that we were contemplating revising Chapter 4. In this instance, and I might need Gina or Kate to remind me, we reached out to a few interest groups via email to let them know that we were undertaking revisions. I believe those included the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Gina, do you have that list handy?
I'm gonna grab that.
Actually, for this, pardon me, Gina Thompson with the Water Quality Division for your transcript. We sent a general notice out to interested parties, which does include our public interest groups, advising them of the upcoming rulemaking and potential considerations. And we also advertised a public webinar where Ms. Miller described which sections of the rule we would be updating.
Thank you, Gina. So to summarize, I was confusing some targeted outreach with a past rule. So general notice, we did have specific conversations with certain groups as needed. Again, Petroleum Association of Wyoming, we gave them a one-on-one heads up since we work with them quite a bit on spills. And then the webinar that Gina mentioned that Kate provided for any interested parties.
Okay, can you just refresh my memory in that as far as the comments that were received, were they all from NGOs or did you get something from PAW or?
Mr. Chairman, we only received the comment letter from the NGOs, which was a combined comment letter from the groups that I mentioned, WALK, PRBRC, Greater Yellowstone Coalition, and POW-JH. We have made sure that industry is aware as we are moving forward with this rule, but we have not received any comment letters from them nor public comments during any of the meetings.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions and comments. Can you also explain how the voting went at the Water and Waste Advisory Board?
Mr. Chairman, we can. Gina, I might need you to refresh my memory on that too, if you.
So I believe that the voting at the advisory board stage, it was split. We did not have a unanimous vote, but we had 3 members in favor and 2 members opposed in their decision to recommend that DEQ can continue with the rulemaking.
Okay, thank you. I think my recollection is that 2 members wanted additional time to review the rule, albeit a short rule. Comment I'd like to make is that normally when I do a review of a rulemaking package, I go through the strike and underline version so I can see what the changes are. When I went through the strike and underline version, I had lots of comments. Then when I went to the clean version, I found that most of the things I had comments on were not in the clean version. So basically, the strike and underline version that we received was not consistent with the clean version. So that makes it very difficult to do review and consumes unnecessary time. So, and particularly this is only, this is a very short rule. Appreciate if you could make sure that staff goes through those documents before they are submitted to the EQC document so that the strike and underline and the clean are consistent with each other. That would save our EQC members a lot of time. So just want to point that out and appreciate that moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize if we made any errors to that effect. I understand the concern and we will certainly take another look at that and make sure that we correct anything moving forward.
Okay, that way we also know what it is we're approving since they don't match. Okay, and then the other thing that I would ask is you to explain on line 93 of the clean version, that's in a new section that relates to guidance, what you mean by the word equivalent in that sentence.
So, Mr. Chairman, again, this refers to the passage that we added with the intent to give us broader authority to refer to cleanup values that we have within department guidance, namely the Solid and Hazardous Waste Division Voluntary Remediation Program fact sheets for soil cleanup values. Because those are not in rule, we did not find a good way to incorporate those by reference. And they are updated periodically after review with the advisory board. So because we are fairly reliant on those fact sheets and need to have the authority to refer to them, so again, that we can establish what level soil needs to be cleaned up to, that was the intent of broadly speaking to the guidance or equivalent standards. So one example could be if there is a new contaminant, perhaps not yet in those fact sheets, but there were scientific literature that either I or the Solid and Hazardous Waste Division administrator would feel meet the intent of a fact sheet, but it hasn't been developed yet, then we could use that scientific literature to support a cleanup value in accordance with this bill. So again, it just gives us broad flexibility to point back to those fact sheets or other guidance or something equivalent, either determined by me or the SHWID administrator.
Okay. So the reason I ask about this is from the perspective of the regulated community, and as a former consultant, I have grave concerns about this particular sentence. And the reason is because guidelines, guidance are not things that are subject to public comment and public scrutiny. And I think those guidelines are extremely important. It's really important for the regulated community to know that these guidelines are there and that's what their goal should be. It helps direct, what they're proposing for cleanup efforts. However, I think the department needs to have the flexibility to say, in this particular, every remediation case is slightly different. Sometimes there's technical impracticabilities. There are other reasons why the administrator would approve an alternative cleanup standard. That sentence, the way it's written with the word equivalent instead of alternate, implies that they are required to go to that guideline or something equivalent. And I envision you have staff going, well, or is this other number equivalent, and how do they measure that? I don't think the meaning is clear there. I think you want to point them toward the guidance, but the department should have the flexibility to say, well, in this case, the administrator is going to approve this other number. But now you have a sentence that says that number has to be equivalent to the guidance, which is essentially the way that's what it reads to me when I read it. And to me, that's making guidance a rule and not giving the department the flexibility to have the administrator approve an alternate. I like the fact that the reference to the guidance is in there because it lets the regulated community know, hey, these are the numbers we want you to reach. But, if first there's, these other contingencies, these other issues, the department has flexibility to approve something else, but the administrator has to approve it, okay? But if you have the word equivalent in there, to me, that is saying that the only choice they have is a guideline or the equivalent number, not an alternate. And I feel like that with that word equivalent in there, that is making the guideline a rule, which I don't think is appropriate considering the guidelines do not have public comment or review. So is there another way you can do that will make me comfortable with that sentence? Because as it is, I would be extremely wary of approving this rule because that's a dramatic change where it has to be that, and it's implying that the administrator doesn't have an alternative, okay? It seems like it's reducing flexibility instead of adding flexibility. So tell me what your thoughts are on that. I would like to hear that so I can get comfortable with this, because otherwise I would be on a strong no on this rule.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Vedestin, thanks for that comment. And certainly it's not our intent to try to incorporate guidance as a rule or make it into a standard. So I can understand your read of that passage and how you're interpreting it. And let me just maybe make a few notes before coming to a suggestion on how maybe we can rectify that. So first, again, the primary guidance that we're thinking about are the Schwid fact sheets. And I'll just note that those do go through public comment and an approval process or review process by the advisory board. So they're not without public input. Again, they're just difficult to incorporate by reference. When we have a spill, namely what we would use would be for water quality or surface water quality standards and our groundwater quality standards, which are promulgated in rule. You guys see those standards, we revise them periodically, but what the guidance does is help make sure that we are going to meet those groundwater standards when there's soil contamination. Those standards are used in some of the calculations to make sure that any leaching of the contaminants aren't going to cause an exceedance of the standards. The goal isn't, and so now getting to maybe a solution, I think we could use the word alternate standards if that addresses your concern rather than equivalent. Again,
That would address my concern.
I think that would be fine. But we're also trying to anticipate that there are emerging contaminants for which we may not have fact sheets, but we may have scientific literature that would help us understand if we had an emerging contaminant in soil, how could we calculate that to make sure that standards are met? So I think that was our goal. So if the word alternate instead of equivalent addresses your concern, we would be fine with that change.
I appreciate that. That would change my voting perspective.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully that would still allow you, if there's an emerging contaminant, the administrator can always, enforce that if there's no guideline that's associated with it. It would still be an alternate.
Mr. Chairman, I agree. I think that still allows us to achieve our intended purpose, which is just to make sure we're giving people the right information to make sure the soil's clean and that we're not going to have a water quality problem.
And to not hamstring yourselves with the word equivalent, which I could see becoming problematic. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Excuse me, any other questions regarding this rule package? There being none, is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment in support of the proposed changes? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment in opposition to the proposed changes? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make a neutral comment or any other comment of the proposed changes? All right, well, thank you for your input on the proposed rulemaking. I will now close the hearing. All right, I want to thank everyone who spoke today and asked questions, gave comments and provided information. The council appreciates all of your input and the time spent attending this meeting to bring your comments forward. We're also thankful for the time the department spent preparing information for the council review as we consider those proposed changes, and for public comments submitted as part of the rulemaking process. So thank you, Administrator Zygmunt and your team. I will ask for a motion to approve revisions to the Water Quality Rules, Chapter 4, as proposed by the department.
Motion to approve Chapter 4 with the change agreed upon during this session of equivalent to alternate.
Okay.
Second.
Marjorie and Bill, thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded. We approve the proposed revisions. Is there any discussion? Any council member have any discussion regarding this upcoming vote? I would just like to say, Marjorie, appreciate you taking the time and recognize that difference and what it might mean to the rule package. And I just want to say good job. So thank you very much.
Thanks, JD.
Okay, I will now call a roll call vote on the motion to approve proposed revisions to the Water Quality Rules, Chapter 4. We'll start Councilmember Modesum.
Aye.
Councilmember Lenz.
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The ayes have it. The motion carried. An order will be entered. And I don't think we have any administrative business. Do we, Kelly?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have any administrative business.
Okay. And no need for an executive session.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so that concludes all items on today's agenda. Thank you all for your attention on these matters. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Bill?
Second.
Seconded. Ryan? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving,
job.
everyone.
Thanks,
Happy
Steve.
Thanksgiving.
You too.
We'll see you guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.